Hey everyone, it's been quite a while since my last video, but here's why. In December I made a first video about the silhouette teasers from CitCon, where I aligned 3D models of existing ships to find out as much as I could about them. Today I will expand on the silhouettes no one really figured out so far. That means it gets a little more speculative, but also a little more entertaining. First I would like to have a look back though at what has been announced and confirmed since then, if only to see how effective all this speculation crafting is. 4 of the silhouettes are not out yet, but there has been some more chatter on the Ironclad and the Pioneer in particular, and these I believe everyone agreed on pretty early on. They are quite obvious. 5 more have since been released, namely the Hornet Tracker and Ghost, the Terrapin Medic, the Starlancer Max, the Misfortune and the Guardian. We predicted all of those correctly. I got some angry messages because that is obviously not the Starlancer Max but the BLD, because that was announced the same day as the Silhouette video. But only the Max has these headlights, not the BLD and not the TAC. They don't mess up these details by accident. Someone deliberately masked out these lights and placed a lens flare on it. Is the BLD also worked on? Very likely, but this is not it. And the Misfortune, considering there were no leaks I knew of back then, other than the name, because these images here came out much later, I think I made some pretty accurate predictions based on just the silhouette.
But I think this variant will be slimmer around the back, lose the saddlebags, and gain some kind of lift at the bottom. This is the very same scale as the existing Prospector. This is not a mining head, it's a salvage head. So my money is on a Prospector salvage variant. We had the name Misfortune floating around for months now, maybe it's that one.
And then lastly, I correctly refuted the speculation that these are the Intrepid and the Guardian again. There were some more leaks around those two, so it was a lot easier, but I'm still very satisfied with the prediction on those. Which leaves us with these. The first one, the Argo CSV, could have been one of the 2 we know about, but in part 1 I already explained why I believe this to be a third one. This one, still unknown. I heard the name Greycat floating around a lot, even though it has industrial in the name, where this clearly looks military. I'm not going to talk about it either, cause I don't care enough about ground vehicles. The thing we thought to be the Guardian or Fat Fury, I have a few little ideas on that one, but I decided late I have to cut this video into 2, and this will be in the second half. The Atlas shape and the flat silhouette below will be the focus of this video, and then arguably the most interesting one of them all will take the majority of the second video, cause I had a few ideas. Alright, let's get to it. So this is obviously something on the Atlas platform, and I showed in part 1 it's not the base building variant we saw snippets of in the past, because it's too small. I got many replies that I thought were great, saying it could be that, just slightly redesigned and having the back part, the trailer if you want, angled away from us, so behind this in the silhouette. But thinking about that for a while, I don't think that is the case. For once, the point of these silhouettes is to give us a teaser and an outline of what to expect, but completely hiding the part that is new and unique to this variant defeats the purpose, I guess. But more importantly, there are no vehicles with independently moving sidecars or trailers in Star Citizen. There are ships like the Hull A and C that basically just change between 2 shapes, but some of you might remember that even that was an engineering task that kept them busy for months or even years. Here we would be talking about 2 objects with individual physics simulations, but connected by a single joint. That has been done in other games. It's pretty easy to do in any 3D software, but as we know, Star Citizen has a history of doing things that have never been done before, but then struggle with other that feel the most easy to implement. And I think based on everything I have seen in Star Engine, this kind of vehicle would be just the greatest source of physics bugs imaginable. Long story short, this could still be the base building Atlas, just a touch smaller and closer to the existing design. Actually, that is what I believe is the most likely answer. But I got another great suggestion in the comments that I liked so much that I wanted to explore that instead. Remember, I showed in part 1 it's the same length as a Spartan, but gets higher in the back. Now, there's a German armored fighting vehicle called the GTX Boxer, or as the Germans call it for short, das Rheinmetall gepanzerte Transportkraftfahrzeug, which looks very similar to the Atlas variants we have, and it has its own variants as well. But there's one that also gets higher and blockier in the back compared to the base variant, and that is an armored medical transport. I just think that the similarity is kinda interesting. So this could be a more military, stronger armored upgrade from the medical Nurser, I think you could argue if that is really necessary, but it would be another of those rather easy tasks they like to use for onboarding, so to let new artists learn their software pipeline, and it would add to the world building and different manufacturers having different solutions for similar scenarios. Base building, sure, would be more interesting right now, but the similarities with the real-world counterpart were so obvious I wanted to point it out. At this point, I want to quickly both thank and apologize to my Patreon and membership supporters, because it has been a long time since the last video. I said from the beginning that I wanted to create high-quality, original and creative Star Citizen content and not start to do filler content to please the algorithm, and that results in those gaps. So a heartfelt thanks to those that support the idea. Now these members get very special stuff from time to time, like an interactive scene of the galaxy interior that I built and that they can play in their web browser. And lastly, I will add this very scene, this R-Corp office that I built for my videos, and that is very much still under construction. So if you are a member already, you can have a closer look at all of this for yourself in your browser right after watching this video. Okay, now back to the silhouettes. Next is the flat one. Last time I said I'm quite uncertain and focused on proving it's not the Intrepid. But then again, one of my viewers brought a detail to my attention that I missed, the small triangle here, in what I assume is the entrance ladder on the opposite side. That little detail tells us with a high level of certainty that this is in fact a consolidated Outland ship.
So what are these triangle things here in the?
We just have two. We have one CNOU ship, but is completely different in terms of function and size. Is a research just based on finding the personality of CNOU in the industrial part.
Since that manufacturer only has a couple of ships in-game at this point, we have a little less reference when it comes to design cues. So before I show you what I came up with, let me show you what I read in the shape to explain a little why I came up with my guess. First, it's obviously tiny and very flat to the ground. In the front, some roundish container is placed to obstruct the shape, but I read some kind of entrance ladder as well as some small elevator for handheld boxes. I can't really make out a proper shape, but I feel there are both and they are less close to each other than they appear here. Alternatively, this vertical block could just be a random box, again to mess with the readability. But then a little to the rear you can more or less clearly make out landing gear, and only now I realize it's very similar to the landing gear on the Pioneer with these thin metal things around them. So I would assume they are angled towards the center of the ship, and that would make this little shadow the gear on the opposing side. I mostly get the direction from this shape in the back, which is oddly placed. It looks rather fragile here at the tail, and a weird place to have a landing gear, but it would fit. And then we have more boxes here, and I think here as well, because this area is a touch brighter and more hazed than the front of the ship. Again, to make it harder to confirm any of this. So, what I came up with is kind of a tiny Pioneer. Something that either sets the very first flagpole into the ground before the big Pioneer comes to terraform the area, or something more suited to the private or semi-private sector. In gameplay terms, something that is in between the tiny base building cart that you can carry in any ship not dedicated to base building, and the Starlancer BLD that already requires a bigger crew than some people might want. Therefore I see a similar bridge design as the Pioneer and the other unconfirmed CNOU ships have, and the also iconic flat design, which might be designed to drop cargo from its belly without anyone having to actually touch and unload it, which could also make it an interesting ship to deliver resources to toxic or hazardous construction sites. The landing gear could, just like the Pioneer, be equipped with ground extractors, but we know too little about that feature to make any educated guesses. What makes this design a little more likely from a technical standpoint is that we learned that deploying construction drones from the bottom is tricky. That is part of the reason why they wanted to scrap the Galaxy base building module. From the side seems possible on Starlancer and Pioneer, but releasing them to the top seems easiest and most straightforward to me. The only thing that kinda strikes me is how small it actually looks. The person next to it would mean that it's not much higher than 3 to 4 meters and roughly 15 to 20 in length, which is tiny in Star Citizen terms. So I would not expect it to carry more than, let's say, 24 ICU if the rear has no interior. But please don't focus on those numbers, it's just super rough guesses. The person could stand closer than it looks like. But keeping in mind, this is mostly speculation, I feel that this concept would make a lot of sense if the rumors are true that they want to get an early version of base building into the game this year, or maybe it's shifted a bit now, but soon. A ship this size, even if the cargo capacity is very limited, would enable a lot more people to get their hands on the new gameplay. And unlike an expensive Pioneer or even the $250 Starlancer, would probably sell like sliced bread. And would also be a great fit for the more industrial focused IAE towards the end of the year. Alright, here I have to cut this video into two for time reasons, but the second half is practically done and will come out within a week or so. If you want your name on that wall for both the next video and the next build of the interactive scene you can play for yourself, an info video about membership options is in the video description. But most importantly, let me know what you think of these and if I missed any good ideas here. Now, thank you for watching and see you in the verse.